A Cromwell media station.
All the big topics.
That's what people want to know about.
Mixed with some entertainment.
So funny.
It's not funny.
Give it a minute.
This is Chase and Michelle with Chase McCabe and Michelle Knezovic.
We got a great show for you, and even if we don't, who cares?
Chase and Michelle on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
Chase and Michelle, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Chase McCabe, Michelle Knezovic, the reporter Nick Keyser with you here on this Monday morning. Hope you're having a fantastic start to your day, to your week. The draft is in the books, and, you know, when I asked the draft fairy to bring me something nice for the draft, I said, give me something to talk about for the next few months, and, you know, they did. Will Levis is now a member of the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if we have the Kentucky fight song queued up for you or how you feel about that, but good Monday. How are you?
Yeah, great Monday. Weekend always goes by too quick. I just think we need a day in between Saturday and Sunday. Personal preference, but a lot of NFL draft talk we got today. An exciting draft, as you said, Chase. Maybe we're biased because we get to talk about a quarterback competition now for the next couple of weeks. We get to talk about Will Levis. Will he be the quarterback of the future? Weeks, months, training camp, years, depending how it turns out. And a lot of polarizing views on the text line on Twitter, which is the word that we have used to describe this quarterback class all year long, Chase.
Yeah. And, I mean, he falls out of the first round. The Titans move up in the second round. In the moment that I heard we have a trade to announce and the Titans moved up, I'm like, here we go.
So they did move up.
Yep.
With the Arizona Cardinals to draft their quarterback, maybe not in the first round.
Yep. But you know what? That's okay. They had their plan, and the one thing I noticed about Ran Carthon, and I want to say this, I like Ran Carthon. I do. I think there are things that you're hearing him say right now that are just as a rookie GM that he probably is not going to say as he moves forward as a GM, that, you know, he's learning. He's a rookie GM. So I think overall, though, he's a smart football guy. He's a former player. I like the fact that you have, and he mentioned this in one of the press conferences, that he talked about not being drafted and that he didn't get to get that moment and that Vrabel was drafted in the third round and he'll always have that moment. Mm-hmm. I think having two guys with two very different backgrounds running your team is a positive thing. I mean, now I will say this, and Ran, if you're listening, no offense, my friend, I want more players like Vrabel than Ran Carthon, but I think that is cool for them to have that, you know, partnership and have those backgrounds. But, you know, I know, and we're going to play the clip in a second. A lot of people are making a big deal about what he said Friday night. And I mean, it stood out to me when he said it of like, oh, okay, I interesting. But they've made these moves. They drafted 6 players on offense, which they needed to address offense. They didn't really address a wide receiver. They did in the 7th round, but well, you know, I don't really call that addressing wide receiver. So there are still a lot of question marks when it comes to this team. Mm-hmm. And there are going to be a lot of question marks. Now they've added the other one, and this was always going to be there if they drafted a quarterback in the, okay, is Tannehill still the starter for this year, or are they looking to move him or going to cut him after June 1?
Yeah, and that's the big question. They'll only be hit with about 17 or 18 million dead cap. So it's pretty much will be even on both sides, but you'll have that extra cap space, right? For maybe going out and getting a wide receiver, right? We talk about DeAndre Hopkins. He's still an Arizona Cardinal and is trying to get out. Will they do that? I don't know. I think Vrabel, you know, mentioned a couple times in the post-draft press conference, hey, there are options, because a big point of emphasis was looking at their wide receiver room. Do you feel as though a Kyle Phillips, a Racey McMath, that they can take on these bigger roles this year, and why didn't you address wide receiver? And then they kept going back to, well, our board, best player available, and things like that. And you see a Jalen Hyatt and a Cedric Tillman go in the 70s But you lost that when you traded up in the second round to go and get a Will Levis, and then your third round pick was in the 80s, and then you got Tajay Spears, not Tajay Sharp, which I keep wanting to say Tajay Spears, the running back out of Tulane. So it's definitely.
I don't hate that pick, by the way. I'm concerned about the knee, obviously, but considering, because I do believe that if one of those receivers had still been on the board, they would have taken a receiver. There was a run on receivers just before they picked. And so, I think they wanted Cedric Tillman. That's what I think. But Cedric Tillman's gone, and then I'm blanking on his name. What's his name for North Carolina? That guy.
Yeah.
They wanted him. So I just think there was a run on receiver, and then it became best player on our board that is available, and Spears fit that mold.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, if they believe the next best wide receiver was a 4th or 5th round pick, what do we talk about all the time? Okay, well, don't reach or don't stretch just to fill your need in a certain situation. But it was all these different things compiled into one. And then they go ahead and they draft a tight end and they draft an offensive lineman. And did you see the video of Ray Pullen Rand waving to the cameras?
Yeah.
That was, I think, a funny troll move. But I don't think that there's much that they can do even after the draft and going and getting somebody, or somebody who gets cut off a roster in training camp and they try to sign somebody. I don't think you're going to have this magical wide receiver one that's going to be able to come into this core group unless it's some huge DeAndre Hopkins trade, which is still very, very far-fetched. So there still are concerns. And if you were to tell me maybe 2 weeks ago that the Tennessee Titans draft all offensive players and only one of them is a wide receiver, my ears would perk up. But,
right.
You look at the players they got, and I think if you look at the specific players and where they got them, I do think there is value. I mean, you get Peter Skoronski in the first round. I didn't even know if he'd be available to Tennessee at 11. You get Will Levis in the second round. Didn't think he'd drop out of the first round. In the third round, you get a Tajay Spears in the third round. And, I mean, if you look at his production and the type of player he is, one of the biggest reasons he dropped is because he has no ACL in his knee and the cartilage is thinning. But, if that isn't an issue and the medicals are fine, he was cleared, they drafted him in the third round. If that isn't an issue, I mean, he could be great value as a third-round pick. So when you look at those things, it doesn't necessarily equal what they need on this roster right now.
Sure. But, I mean, eventually you're going to have to address that position. So, I mean, and I don't know if he can be the bell cow running back, but I also think this offense could evolve and have a running back by committee like you've seen, the Philadelphia Eagles do, and then have more of a passing game. So we will see. But I do want to address, and by the way, our question today is a simple one. How do you feel about Will Levis being the quarterback of the future of the Tennessee Titans? 615-737-1025. You can also weigh in on Twitter. We'll put that up there at 1025 The Game.